Welcome, intrepid explorers, to a journey back in time. Imagine a world where human ingenuity touched the heavens, where monumental creations defied belief, and where legends were carved in stone and gold. Join us as we unveil the 7 wonders of the ancient world. From the towering lighthouse of Alexandria to the majestic Colossus of Rhodes, and the breathtaking hanging gardens of Babylon, prepare to be captivated by the most astonishing feats of engineering and artistry our ancestors ever conceived. Get ready to witness the grandeur of a bygone era right here, right now. In this episode, we will talk about the Temple of Artemis. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was one of the ancient world's 7 wonders. Today we visit its ruins in Turkey. The temple was dedicated to the goddess Artemis, who was known to the Romans as Diana. She was the Greek goddess of the hunt, of the wilderness, of wild animals, of the moon, and she was a major deity throughout Greece, and her worship spread far beyond. And so temples were built for her in many places. But this temple at Ephesus is by far the most famous. It was located just outside the city walls, but within the Roman city near the harbor, which was the center of international trade for the whole Eastern Mediterranean. So it was visited by thousands every year, and so they would come to marvel at this amazing temple. And we know about it today because of the writings of the Roman historian Pliny the Younger, who described the temple and its enormous size. He said that it was 120 feet high, which was 36 meters, and 400 feet long, which was 122 meters, and covered nearly 2 acres of land, which is around 8,000 square meters. This made it the largest temple in the ancient world. It had 127 columns, all made from marble, and they were fluted and polished to a high shine. And they surrounded an open courtyard with an altar in the center. Then behind the courtyard was the main chamber, which was called the cella. And there was a huge statue of Artemis made out of gold and ivory, seated on a throne holding 2 torches. It was around 40 feet tall, so about 12 meters, and it was considered to be the tallest statue in the ancient world. There were also 12 great works of art that decorated the temple, each showing scenes from various myths about Artemis. And these were made from ivory and gold. So everything in there was made either from marble or ivory or gold. And all these materials were brought there by boat from all around the Mediterranean. Marble was imported from the island of Chios. Gold and silver were imported from Spain. Ivory came from Greece, from Italy, from Egypt, and even from India. The labor force was made up of slaves and prisoners of war, and they were paid in food, and then later they were freed after their work was completed. Construction began in 550 BCE and took 100 years to finish. So everyone worked willingly because they wanted to get this project done as quickly as possible. And when it was finally completed, it was the greatest structure in the ancient world. It was a massive tourist attraction, and people came from all over just to see it. Many kings and queens contributed to the temple's construction, including Croesus, the last king of Lydia, who was the first to contribute to the building of the temple. But his neighbor, the king of Ephesus, did not like this, so he went to war with Croesus, but lost. After that, he became friends with the Lydians, and together they built the temple. And it was finished 100 years later by the Roman Emperor Augustus. It was considered to be the property of Rome, and the emperor at the time, Caligula, was very proud of it. He placed a statue of himself in front of the temple with the inscription, "Given by the Senate and people of Rome." But most people ignored this dedication to Rome and instead associated the temple only with Artemis, the goddess. In fact, the Roman Emperor Hadrian visited the temple and was so impressed that he decided to make a pilgrimage there, traveling all the way from Athens on foot. And when he arrived, he walked barefoot into the city to show his devotion to the goddess. But this temple wasn't just a place of worship. It was also a place of commerce. There were shops all around the outside of the temple where vendors sold souvenirs to tourists. They sold things like figurines of the goddess, jewelry, and perfume, and even wine. There was even a brothel nearby. So you can imagine what it must have been like. And since prostitution was illegal in Athens, some historians think that prostitutes from Athens would travel here to make money. But unfortunately, the temple was destroyed twice. The first destruction happened in 356 BCE. According to legend, the hero of this story is a man named Herostratus. His name is written down in history because he desecrated the temple. He entered the temple and defaced the statue of Artemis with a chisel and a hammer. Now we don't know why he did this. Perhaps he wanted to become famous, perhaps he was mad at something or someone, or perhaps he was just deranged. But whatever his reason, it was enough for the Ephesians to accuse him of impiety. And when they found out his name, they took his citizenship away and banned him from the city. And this was actually pretty common. People would often destroy statues of gods and goddesses in order to provoke the population of the city. And so the priestess of Artemis put a curse on the culprit and vowed revenge upon him. But fortunately, no one knows what that revenge was, nor do we know how the temple was rebuilt after this. But we do know that it was rebuilt because it was destroyed again in 263 CE by a Christian bishop named Tarasius. This was during a time when Christianity was spreading rapidly throughout the Roman Empire, and Christians were considered to be a threat to the Roman way of life. They believed that the old gods were false gods, and that Jesus was the one true God. And so to prove this, they went to the temple, the biggest temple in the entire empire, and they tried to convert the priestess. But the priestess refused to abandon her service to Artemis, and so the bishop decided to take matters into his own hands. He seized the temple, drove out the priests, and then pulled down the statue of Artemis and burned it. He also forced the high priestess to watch as the temple was being destroyed. And then he chained her to a chariot like a horse and whipped her until she died. So obviously this caused a riot among the pagans of the city. They attacked the bishop and killed him. But this only made more Christians come to the city to avenge his death. And they fought against the pagans and won. So the pagans fled and left Ephesus to the Christians. And this was a turning point in history. The last pagan temple of the ancient world had fallen. But there is some hope. There are still ruins of this temple standing today. And every year, thousands of people come to see them. And the locals have turned the area into a tourist trap. They sell fake souvenirs and fake jewelry and fake coffee mugs, just like the fake Colosseum that you can buy in Rome. But if you look past all that, you can still imagine what the temple would have looked like in its heyday. You can picture the marble columns and the gold and ivory statue of Artemis inside. You can picture the worshippers coming from all around the empire to see this temple. And you can imagine the great art on the walls depicting all the stories of the goddess. And even though the temple was destroyed 1,750 years ago, we can still learn from it today. We learn about the culture of the time and the religion and the myths and legends of the ancient world. And so it is worth visiting the site today and walking around and imagining what it must have been like all those years ago. Thank you for watching. See you next time.